WEFUNK. We funk.
However, like I mentioned, and again, I blame myself because I'm part of the problem by covering, giving you the full rundown of Roy Jones Jr., Mike Tyson before mentioning any of the other fight announcements of the last month, especially when last month, I talked about how surprised I was at the lack of major fight announcements, especially, like I said, the lack of announcements really at all from Matchroom Boxing or PBC or Golden Boy or any of the other promotional companies outside of Top Rank who, like I said, due to their affiliation with ESPN, were able to whip up their bubble before everybody else and figure out a way to make it economically viable to put boxing cards on. However, easier said than done when you have the backing of ESPN, the financial backing of ESPN behind you, obviously. So it took a little bit longer than I expected. However, finally over the last month, a lot of fights starting to roll out, major fighters, big fight cards, all the different promotions getting in on the action, for the most part anyway, as well as some really, really cool presentations for the sport, where I guess we'll start, of course, with Eddie Hearns and Fight Camp and Matchroom Boxing, of course, which will be seen on DAZN, as well as Sky Sports in the native London, where the whole Fight Camp scenario is taking place at, and which is a super cool whole situation. And if you're just checking out the show, if you're not a big boxing fan and you happen to be still listening to this and you don't know what I'm talking about, definitely look in to the Fight Camp scenario. But basically, Eddie Hearns, the promoter for the company, basically turned his second house, which I guess he had a second house in the English country, which had kind of been turned into like an office situation for the promotion. However, so his second house turned office, now turned into a boxing bubble, where he put down, over $1 million and turned it into like a full-on TV setup, pyrotechnics, video screens, did a really, really good job at creating that, small set boxing, TV friendly environment that ESPN did with Top Rank, but as well in a really, really unique, fun environment, outdoors in the guy's backyard. Like I said, in England, who, I had theorized with, USA being a little bit behind the curve on coronavirus. I thought that maybe internationally they would have been able to figure out some fight cards. However, really, Eddie Hearns bringing boxing back to England with the Fight Camp whole scenario, as they really did not ever, they were not really running any other fights internationally, or at least, in the UK, as I thought that they might. But so really, for a lot of ways, an absolute home run. And so far, the early results as well are absolutely phenomenal. As I guess they started in the first week of August with the James Tennyson card. All right, last week the Jamal James Delorme was a great fight. They got another fight this week, and then all leading up to the big mega card, which I did talk about last week. I guess they had already announced the Wythe Povetkin and Katie Taylor whole card that's going to be going down the 22nd. But the rest of the fights that came before it all were announced, and so far, like I mentioned, the early results have been absolutely phenomenal. As Eddie Hearns has already stated, they already do have 2 more fight cards planned through October, and they have definitely rumored about doing more fights in Fight Camp. They've kind of rumors that the 2 other fight cards are going to take place outside of Fight Camp in other kind of unique, cool fight environments, though. have been the rumor, if not back to Fight Camp. But however, Eddie Hearns has already promised and guaranteed that within the next year there will be Fight Camp with fans. All right, as like I mentioned, the UK is closer to getting back to more relative normal, pre-coronavirus life in sports. So but Eddie Hearns has definitely, and once you've invested $1 million to put in pyrotechnics in your backyard and building a ring, you might as well use it over the over the near future. So Eddie Hearns has already guaranteed that whether there's fans in arenas or not, there will be action back at Fight Camp in England in the future. But and like I said, still a couple more cards coming on here in August with the big mega card at the end of August, and like I said, with 2 more cards through October expected to be announced for Matchroom. Would not be surprised to if those at least one of them did take place at Fight Camp as well. So definitely be on the lookout for that. And like I said, if you have not, seen for yourself any of the action, definitely give that a Google. All right. And I guess we will be talking a little bit later. I'll get into a couple of those fights that took place a little bit more. But a great job from Eddie Hearns and Matchroom, I guess, as far as PBC is concerned, however. Whereas Matchroom really kind of gave you Top Rank did it first and broke the whole ice with the bubble situation. Matchroom's probably given you the coolest, most unique touch taking place in, the promoter's backyard. However, PBC is really the first to kind of start rolling out some major fighters and putting their, some of their promotionals headliners into arenas sans fans, which, as we've talked about on past episodes, but Canelo and a lot of the bigger fighters have, been a little bit skeptical to fight without crowds just because the lack of money. The money wouldn't be there without the sold-out arena, which has become and, will continue to be a significant issue with the fanless fight environment. However, PBC has definitely figured it out and had a major whole slew of announcements for all the fights that they've announced throughout the rest of the summer and the fall. And like I mentioned, some real big names. I'll just give you some of the highlights. Some other, a lot of other fight cards in the mix. But just to go through some of the real big names, I guess it'll start starting the same night actually as the Matchroom DAZN big fight card with the wife Povetkin matchup that I was just talking about, and that fight night on DAZN. The same night PBC will be putting on a Showtime Sean Porter fight, which is, of course, Porter, Big LW's KO Cast's personal fave in the welterweight division, which is, of course, absolutely stacked, best division in all of boxing, with a lot of the biggest stars in the sport, all in that welterweight division. Sean Porter, who actually has not fought since the Errol Spence matchup last September. Okay, which was, of course, a Big LW KO Cast fight of the year, and an absolute great fight for the Sean Porter Errol Spence last September. So now Sean Porter, who's been doing great analyst work with Fox, all right, as well. He's really turning into, a great boxing analyst. But back in the ring versus Sebastian Formella, who's undefeated fighter, relatively unknown, but 22-0, and coming in with the chance to upset one of the biggest names in the welterweight division. So that's going to be a fun fight card on the 22nd. All right, the month after, on September 26th, they're putting together a real mega card actually for PBC, featuring 4 title fights. Okay. And some really big names for the promotion. Both Charlo brothers will co-feature the headlines. Okay, Jermall Charlo will actually be putting up his middleweight title versus Sergey Derevyanchenko. Of course, Derevyanchenko last year lost that real controversial decision to Gennady Golovkin in the Garden, which actually had the Garden fans booing the decision, which was an absolute disgrace, even if Derevyanchenko did deserve the decision. To boo Triple G for getting a decision was absolutely crazy, and just really showed the fan support that Derevyanchenko won in that matchup. However, Derevyanchenko has lost 2 of his last 3 fights. He's coming to this fight 13-2, losing 2 of his last 3 fights, albeit to Triple G and Jacobs. But and Derevyanchenko is from Ukraine, so started his professional career later on, a la Lomachenko. Okay, getting forced to fight for the Ukrainian amateur ranks forever. So the 13-2, he's not exactly a youngster. Ascending the ranks, but you don't want to get your 3rd loss. And Jamar Charlo, undefeated, definitely one of the best middleweights. Really looking for a big fight versus Alvarez or some of the other bigger names. Is lined up with a really, really tough fighter in Derevyanchenko with a lot to lose. So that will be a great headliner. All right, the co-feature for junior middleweight title will feature Jamal's brother Jermel. Right, as Jermel Charlo will face Jason Rosario for a vacant junior middle. As well on the card, Brandon Figueroa will put the junior featherweight title up. As well as Mario Barrios will put the junior welterweight strap up versus Ryan Carl. So 4 title fights on a Fox pay-per-view, as of course PBC with their network connections with Fox. All right, I guess another part of the story, however, that'll come up with this next fight, but as well, not only their traditional relationship with Fox for PBC, but as well they have strung some deals with Showtime here in Coronaville to co-promote some shows. So the following month, in late October, they have announced a really, really fun, interesting card to take place for headlined by Tank Davis and Leo Santa Cruz. All right, so 2 of the big names, at the junior lightweight, featherweight, super featherweight, everywhere in that range, as they've, have both climbed the ranks. 2 of the biggest names, around that range, all right, are putting on a really, really interesting, and of course, Tank Davis especially, one of the bigger names, especially for, American fight fans with his, connections with Money Mayweather. He's, Money Mayweather's prime promotional tool, and one of the real big American prospects, and really could be one of the names that you hear from for a long time in the sport of boxing versus Santa Cruz, who's a real established, a highly thought of fighter as well. Okay, so just right off the bat, name recognition alone, a really interesting fight. However, made all the more interesting when you get into the contractual shenanigans. Okay, as of course both fighters actually holding straps at different weights. Okay, as Tank Davis holds a belt at lightweight. Okay, Santa Cruz holding a belt at junior lightweight. Okay, so the fighters have agreed to fight at the junior lightweight minimum of 130 pounds. Okay, however, Gervonta Tank Davis's lightweight 135-pound strap will be on the line, as will Santa Cruz's junior lightweight title on the line. Okay, so 2 titles on the line in 2 different weight classes. Okay, for a fight that will take place at 130. So Tank Davis will need to come down a weight and make a 130-pound minimum for the fight. However, will still be putting his lightweight title on the line. Okay, so if Santa Cruz can pull off the upset, he's not only holding his keeping his junior lightweight lightweight title, but then as well holding a lightweight title in a division with Lomo and Lopez and Haney and Selby and all the other big names that are in the lightweight division, as well as, all of the junior lightweight names, Joseph Diaz and Jamel Herring, Oscar Valdez, who we saw this month. But, so really a lot of interesting fights to be set up, really for either guy, I guess, from that standpoint, with either division. You don't know if Tank Davis, does win the junior lightweight title. You don't expect him to necessarily defend it. He's not going to be juggling back and forth between weights with title defenses. For Santa Cruz, if he wins, he would probably be a little bit more inclined to go up in weight, you'd figure, especially with some of the bigger names. However, if there is a specific name, if Tank Davis wants to fight Lamont Roach or, Oscar Valdez or whoever, he could potentially stay down, pick and choose opponents to stay down or move back up. But just all in all, really, really interesting situation between two really interesting fighters. Of course, Santa Cruz has been on the run from Shakur Stevenson forever. Tank Davis, like I mentioned, has been, a real rising star in the sport since he was, for a long time for him, actually headlining his first pay-per-view. So really turning from prospect into superstar, and a real interesting fight at the end of October. So definitely more on that over the next couple months here on the show, but really looking forward to that one. However, really, probably the biggest headliner in my book on the PBC fight announcement flock is the return of Showtime Sean Porter's opponent in that Fight of the Year Classic last September, when Sean Porter lost a close decision to Errol Spence, who widely regarded as, one of the 2 or 3 pound-for-pound champions in 2019. However, of course, as we all remember, the really horrific incident, I believe just the week after that Sean Porter fight. By the time I recorded my next show to break it down anyway, there had already been the Errol Spence car accident where he was in a really severe one-car accident, ended up flipping his Ferrari several times or whatever, but really lucky to have made it out alive, and one of those situations where he really made it out, without any serious crazy injuries, as well as, he was back on his feet relatively quick and, rumored to be interested in fighting relatively quick. And now has become, like I said, not really much longer than his opponent, Sean Porter, who is going to be pretty much returning, from a September fight the following September, only a couple of months later. However, a world different time in between. Errol Spence will return to the ring. Okay, and returning to the ring, not with a let me get the feel for boxing a tune-up fight, but coming back versus one of the other, top 5 welterweights. But Danny Garcia, who probably next to Sean Porter is my favorite in the division, but a great defensive fighter from Philly, Danny Garcia, and like I said, really one of the toughest fighters. He had the coming off of back-to-back wins, coming off of the back-to-back losses in title fights, or I guess maybe 2 out of 3 losses to Keith Thurman and Sean Porter in 3 fights for Danny Garcia. Since that Sean Porter loss, he has now won back-to-back fights against, a little bit lesser competition over the last year. However, now getting his crack at one of the other big names is, of course, you got Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, Sean Porter, even Keith Thurman, like I said, who'd already beat Danny Garcia, even now Pacquiao, who after the big upset last year, versus Keith Thurman Usman is, back in full effect in the welterweight division and is expected to, make a big fight announcement with one, or at least before coronavirus was expected to make a big fight announcement, or researching a big fight with one of these guys. Obviously, Terrence Crawford was the rumor, but, and of course, the Spence Crawford co-promoted ESPN, PBC, Fox PBC pay-per-view is really the fight that everybody was looking at, and the fight that really was really widely rumored to be taking place, as we saw Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury last February kind of knock down the door, and between a co-promoted pay-per-view between Fox and ESPN, and that was really, conventional wisdom would have thought that without the car accident from Errol Spence and now the worldwide pandemic of the coronavirus, the Spence Crawford mega fight would have probably been a reality at some point in 2020, and obviously due to all of the above, that has been put off. However, Errol Spence will make his return to the ring in November versus one of the best fighters at the division and one of the biggest names at the division. So really trying to pick up where he left off as the one of the pound-for-pound kings of the sport, Errol Spence. So like I said, just between the two fighters and the division, but as well the whole side story of Errol Spence making his comeback from a very severe car accident. That probably the headline. Like I said, just a week. It'll be a week before the Tyson Roy Jones Jr. fight, and nobody in America will care. Except for those of us listening to Big LW's KO Cast. But so November. So all in all, though, between PBC, we have got some fun fights planned throughout the fall, all the way till November, with Wilder Fury still looming very large in the near future as well. So finally, we are back to a fun flock of fights for the foreseeable future in the fall. F yeah. With all the alliteration.
Big F! WEFUNK. We funk.